Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How's everyone today? Alhamdulillah, and our online participants as well. All good. So, Alhamdulillah, it's good to be back in class. See some real faces in front of me. For the past, how long has it been now? More than a year. I've been like sitting in my room and teaching myself. No, just Alhamdulillah for online. We were able to continue, but it's not the same. It's not the same being online. It allows more like, can we see them? There's a lot of cables connected to my laptop now, so I can't turn it around unless somebody else connects their phone to the. Inshallah, as we go along, as you can see, today was our first day back here after a long time. Set up a couple of time, but as we go forward, inshallah, we'll be able to streamline the interaction between online and in-person class a bit better. Like I already know one hiccup that we're going to have today is that when online participants participate in the class, I think the class will be able to hear, but unless you guys speak very loud, then they might not be able to hear you. But inshallah, that's easily remedied by just getting another mic or having another Zoom stream going in the class. But inshallah, as we go forward, we will iron out all of those hiccups. But for now, I think the purpose is just to get going again, get the Mizan vibe going again. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take it from strength to strength and optimize our learning experience. Inshallah, where everybody's in a comfortable space, whether that be at home or whether that be in class. Obviously, we know we are in unprecedented times, so we factor all of that into how we try and deliver our classes, inshallah. If you cannot hear me, or if there's at any point in time a glitch with the like with whatever's happening here, just please let me know. If somebody sends something online and I don't get it, just inform me. I don't think I'll be able to ignore the in-person people. So yeah. So how many people are there physically? I don't know, maybe about 20. 7 females, and how many guys are here? Nine males in this class. I'm not sure about the other class yet, but inshallah we'll see. So, okay, let's get into it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Just some things that I need to mention. We're going to be doing in this first period, we're going to be doing Nahwu, right? Now, since we've combined 3 classes in here, the second year class, what was the second year class last year, and then the Dawrah class. You may be thinking, what on earth are we going to do? So we have tried to streamline the content or choose the content such that it is appropriate to all of the classes. With the second year class of this year, I was busy doing Nahwu with him. So Nahwu beyond the first year level, we were covering the marfu'at. We were looking at the hal of a raf' and all of the functions that are played by the hal of raf'. Now I know the second year class of last year did cover the marfu'at. Is that correct? Anybody from second year last year? Anyways, I think they by and large did cover the marfu'at, but they haven't covered the mansubat, those or the functions fulfilled by the hal of nasb, as well as the majrurat and the tawabi', right? Those in the Dawrah class might have done all of them, but it would have been a long time ago. And the refresher, I don't think will harm anyone in that regard. So in the Marfu'at, with the second year class, we just have Kaana and its sisters to cover, and Inna and its sisters to cover. Thereafter, inshallah, we will move on to the Mansubat. Rafi is pretty easy and straightforward because we learned that already in first year essentially. The Mubtada, the Khabar, the Ismul Fa'il, the Na'ibul Fa'il. Sorry, not the Ismul Fa'il, the Fa'il, the actual verb, the Na'ibul Fa'il. And we introduced to like even the concept of a delayed Mubtada, that concept gets introduced in the first year. So it's just a formal lesson on it. Kaana and Inna are the same. So inshallah, that won't take up too much time. Thereafter, we'll move to the Mansubat. And the Mansubat is actually where the bulk of the detail and nuance lies. Right? And then we'll move forward from there. Right? So we'll have, firstly, as we have it now, we'll first have a Nahwu period, not too long, half an hour, inshallah. Then a Nasiha period, which is, easily tailored to suit all the classes. And then we'll do Quran later in the day. So I will get you for Quran after. You'll have a period of Quran with Maulana. I'm not sure exactly what's going to be at the point. I think either Maulana Yazid or Maulana Muhammad Ka or whoever, I'm not too sure exactly. And then we'll have a break. I'll come back here, inshallah. And then the surah that we're going to do for now is we're going to do Surah An-Nur. Surah An-Nur is a surah that I started with the Dawrah class at one point in time, and then I started with the combined class online. And so we're going to just do a quick recap. There was a lot of detail that we discussed in those few lessons that we had on it. So what I'm going to ask is that everybody that's now in this current combined class, for those that haven't been introduced to Surah An-Nur, there's a lot of detail regarding the Sharia, penal law, the purposes of the law, etc. So I'm going to direct you to the recordings of those introductory classes to catch up. And I'm also just going to go then through a quick translation, introduction of the surah, not with all of the detail that we've been covering it thus far. And inshallah, then we'll all be up to speed because we're not far. We've done about, I don't think more than 10 verses of Surah Nur. Then we'll all be on the same page with the Quran lessons as well, inshallah. Right, so that's just a bit of orientation as to how we're going to move forward from where we are currently. And inshallah, that will allow us to, all then be on the same page and go forward from there. Let's see how it works. Make dua. Inshallah. Right, so Nahwu. We have been covering with the second year class. We had a lesson initially on our discussions on Nahwu. I think it feels like so new for me because I think I wasn't here for the past 3 weeks or so. We haven't done Nahwu for a long time. My sister got married last week, and I don't know what was happening before that. Anyways, yeah, they actually made me the wedding planner, so I had to. I don't know. It wasn't by appointment; it was just by necessity. But okay, so when we started our Nahwu class, initially we were just looking at the idea of the hals and how different words look in those hals, right? Remember, we had different types of word. We had the mufrad word, the singular word. We had the muthanna word, the dual word. We had the jama' mudhakkar salim, the sound masculine plural. Then we had the jama' muannath salim, the sound feminine plural. Then we had the jama' mukassar, the broken plural. The asma' khamsa, which are basically 5 special words, 5 words that act different to all of the other words. Not only do the end casings change, but the entire ending of the word, the whole letter at the end of the word changes, depending on the hal that it's in and the function that it's playing in a sentence, right? Then we looked at ghayr munsarif words, semi-declinable words, and mabni words, non-declinable words, right? Now, all of the classes would have covered that. It might just be sounding a little bit strange because of rustiness, but all of the classes should have covered all of those different types of words and how they look in each of the halas. Right? Just tell me quickly, is there any class that's here now in this combined class that doesn't have this PDF? Or does everybody have it? Okay, if anybody doesn't have this PDF, then I'll just make arrangements for it. I can send it right now on the chat on Zoom, and we'll make arrangements for everybody to have it emailed to them later. I think no, there isn't only one version. This might be a changed version of it. So I think this is a second edition. Just order of some things are changed. So I've sent it in the chat on Zoom now. And for those that are now obviously in the class, you can see it on the screen for now, and we'll have it emailed to you later, inshallah. Right. Thereafter, we said the format in which we are going to go through these lessons in Nahwu is not by learning individual concepts just on their own without any particular order. We are going to follow the order of Assalamu alaikum. Belated happy birthday. We're going to follow the order of the halas. So we're going to look first at halatul raf and look at all of the functions that get fulfilled by halatul raf. Then we're going to look at halatul nasb, and we're going to look at all the functions in a sentence that get fulfilled by halatul nasb. Then we're going to look at halatul jar, all the functions that get fulfilled by halatul jar. And then we're going to look at those functions that don't have a specific hal, or what we call the tawabi'. They just follow the hal of the word that they're connected to. Right? So it's a function in a sentence that doesn't have a specific hal. It takes on whichever hal the word that is attached to is connected to. You can give me an example of something like that. Like a sifa. A sifa can be in any hal. Its hal is just dependent on the word that it is connected to. Right? As opposed to something like a mudafun ilay. Mudafun ilay is always in halatul jar. So it has a specific hal. That function has a specific hal. So that's what we're going to be. Look at the fit in which we're going to the prime hal, if you the hal that always occupies them, that is halatul raf. The focus, the core of a sentence will generally be in halatul raf. So here we had a number of functions fulfilled by halatul raf. Firstly, we had the fa'il, the doer of a verb. Yeah, and I remind you, don't ever be confused between the ismul fa'il and the fa'il. Ismul fa'il is a type of noun. Fa'il is a function in a sentence, right? So the fa'il will be in halatul raf. Then the na'ibul fa'il, if we have a passive form verb, a majhul verb, if at any point in time any of these words, I just maybe I was on holiday for too long, but if at any point in time any of these words sound strange or foreign to you, just tell me and then just give you a quick recap on what that is, right? When you have a majhul verb, a passive form verb in the form of fu'ila rather than fa'ala, where you know the doer is not going to be mentioned, you will have a na'ibul fa'il in the sentence, right? And literally translates as substitute for the doer, but essentially we know it's the prime object or the main object of a passive form verb that has now been promoted to halatul raf because the boss has got out. So as he pass as he my pass. Is that how it goes? Something like that. Yeah. So because there's no fa'il in the house, we let the maf'ul, we upgrade the first maf'ul to the status of a fa'il. We put it in halatul raf and we call it the na'ibul fa'il. Then we have the mubtada of a sentence. Everybody should know what's a mubtada. The mubtada is the subject of a sentence, usually found at the beginning of a sentence. But at times it can be later in the sentence, right? and then we call it a delayed mubtada. And you find, or you look for this mubtada when you have a nominal sentence, a sentence that starts with a, what's a nominal sentence? A sentence that starts with a ism, right? The jumla ismiya. And the other part of the nominal sentence is going to be a khabar, and a khabar is usually the second part of the sentence. At times it can be the first part of the sentence, but that's only when you have a delayed mubtada. You're going to have a khabar that's brought forward, and this is the predicate, it's the news, the information about your subject, right? Then we have the ismu kana and its sisters, and the khabaru kana and its sisters. Ismu kana, ismu kana is just the thing in the sentence that takes the place of the mubtada. It's like what we call the mubtada, the subject of a sentence, when the sentence begins with kana, or when there's a kana in the sentence, right? And the khabru inna is simply the khabar of a sentence that has inna at the beginning, right? The khabar of a sentence. How do you identify this khabar? The same way you identify normal khabar, right? It's exactly the same like a normal khabar. It just has a specific rule when the sentence starts with a inna. Right? And if I just give you a foreshadowing of that discussion, when we have, if I have a nominal sentence, a jumla ismiya, right? Let me just put an example of it on the board. Give me a sentence. الرجل طويل. Okay, yeah, we have an example, yeah. But let's just go with الرجل. What does that mean? The man is tall. Guys online sound very quiet. You guys can unmute yourselves if you want to. So we have our jumla ismiya here, right? الرجل طويل. Simple sentence. What does it mean? The man is tall. What kind of sentence is this? A nominal sentence, right? Jumla ismiya. Now, I can put a kana at the beginning of the sentence. It's going to cause some changes. And I can put the in at the beginning of the sentence to cause some changes, right? So let's look at kana first. If I put a kana here, so at the moment we have it like this. الرجل طويل, isn't it? Now what will happen is if I put a kana here, the mubtada is going to say the same. Kana rajulu. But in this one is going to change here. The khabar is going to change to nasb. طويلا. Right? So that's why we have here, look, in the list of marufu'at, things that are in raf, we don't have the khabar of kana, we only have the ism of kana, which is basically what did I tell you? What is it? It's what we call the mubtada in a sentence that starts with kana. Right? So this ar-rajul used to be the mubtada, right? And now we just call it the ismu kana. The subject of a sentence was kana. So when we learn the mansubat, then we're going to learn about the khabar of kana. Can you see that? Okay. Now let me just remove this. Let's go back to our normal sentence. Ar-rajulu tawilun. Right. Now what happens if I inna also enters upon a nominal sentence? What happens if I put inna at the beginning? Now the opposite happens. The mubtada will go into nasb and the khabar will remain in raf. Right? So how will the sentence read? Inna rajula tawilun. And that's why if you look in our list of marfu'at here, you don't see the ism of inna, which is essentially just the mubtada of a sentence that starts with inna. But we rather find the khabar of inna, because as you can see the khabar of inna is in halatul raf. And that's simply it. The next part of the discussion of kana and inna are just learning what its sisters are. What do we mean by its sisters? The other words that follow the same rule. So what are the sisters of inna? The other words that follow the same rule. Right? So for the sisters of kana, it's going to be, what's the rule? The mubtada, or the mubtada, which we now call the ism, is going to be in raf, and the khabar is going to be in nasb. And for inna and its sisters, the mubtada is going to be in nasb, and the khabar is going to be in raf. That's it.
You have both an inna and a kana, because you're doing two very different things. One is making it fast, and the other one is emphasizing.
Yes. Usually what will happen in that case, we won't use inna, or not directly. You might have something like, and you would have heard this in the Quran, innahu kana, right? Or you might just have the inna changing to in kana. But that in, we're not going to mean if. It's going to be for emphasis, right? So if you're taking the first example, innahu kana, we can apply the rule of inna to the who, and after the kana we apply the rule of kana, right? That's okay. So let's go through that. So we went through the lessons on the fa'il, we went through the lessons on the naibul fa'il, we went through the lesson on the khabar, different types of khabar, when the khabar is just one word in the sentence, or when there's no single word that can be called the khabar. Rather, the khabar is either in the form of a harful jar, ism majroor, or dharf and mudafun ilayh, or the khabar is a whole sentence, a verbal sentence, or nominal sentence. Right? Like I said, if anybody has any questions on this at any point in time, seeing that we've combined the classes, just ask. But I think for this class, let's look at our lesson at hand, perhaps, and then we will, once you have the books and all of those things, we can look at that inshallah. Then we did the lessons on the mubtada, 2 lessons on the mubtada, when it's the normal mubtada, and then when the mubtada is delayed, right? The delayed mubtada. That's 1.5. Then 1.6, that's where we are now. Ismu kana and its sisters. So what I'm going to do now is, what time is this supposed to be up until? 20 past 9. We're already at 9:15. So what we'll do is we'll just have a quick introduction to this, inshallah. We'll leave our nasiha for next week. And then we take it from there. So, like I told you, Ismu Kana and its sisters, what is that about? It's simply what we call the mubtada, Ismu Kana and its sisters literally means, or Ismu Kana wa akhawatuha means the subject of Kana. Ism here we translate as subject. The subject of Kana, Ismu Kana, that's actually a mudafun ilayh construction. Ismu Kana, the subject of Kana and its sisters. By its sisters we mean those words that follow the same rule like Kana. Right. So we first have a basic introduction to it. And in the 5 minutes that we do have, the main part of that is I just want to show you what the sisters of Kana are, right? So that you can learn that. And we can take that forward in our lesson of Kana next week, inshallah. So the first thing that you need to know is, when we put Kana at the beginning of a sentence, or specifically at the beginning of a nominal sentence, some changes happen. Right? Like I told you in our example that we had, inna rajulu or ar-rajulu tawilun, we changed it to kana ar-rajulu tawilan. So what happens? A number of changes take place. The first change is that how do you translate ar-rajulu tawilun? The man is tall. But where's is in the sentence? It's implied. There's no actual word is there, right? So when I put the kana at the beginning of the sentence, it changes the is to was. So it changes the sentence to past tense. Changes the sentence to past tense. Then, as I told you before in that example, that word ar-rajulu, we used to call it al-mubtada, right? Now we call it the ismu kana, the subject of kana. What's changing there? Only the name. Just what we call it. That's a technical point. The only thing that's changing is what we call it, right? But it stays in araf. And then the khabru kana, well, we just adapt its name slightly. We still call it the khabar, but now we're just saying the khabru kana. The khabar of kana, the khabar of what was, information about what was, and the change that occurs there is that it changes from halatul raf to halatul nasb. Right? Somehow my example is exactly the same like the book. So here we have example ar-rajulu tawilun, the man is tall. We changed when we put kana at the beginning of it over here. The ar-rajulu in form stayed the same, but in name changed to the ismu kana. The tawilan in name stayed the khabar, but in form changed to nasb. Right? So kana ar-rajulu tawilan. And then as I told you, when we bring any of the sisters of kana in the place of kana, the same thing happens. Right? When any of the sisters of kana are added, then the same thing happens. What happens? Whatever meaning is associated with that sister, right? That's going to happen. It's going to change to past tense. We're going to call what was the mubtada, the ism of that thing, and we're going to change the khabar of that thing to nasb. Those changes are always going to happen. So what are the sisters of Kana? The sisters of Kana are Kana. Well, it's not a sister. That is the main one. Kana. What does Kana do? Makes the sentence past tense. Changes the is to was. And at times, you would know this already. It can change the meaning to not just was in one case, but used to. Remember, if I have it followed by a present tense verb, kana yaf'alu. He used to do. He used to do, right? Then we have ma kana. Ma kana, what is that? Just the negative of kana. It's kana with a ma before. That's all that it is. And what happens? Kana is like a type of a fi'al. Sometimes we call it a fi'al naqis. It's like a verb. And that's why you'll see with a verb, you have the subject in raf and the maf'ul in nasb. So you can see a resemblance between kana and that over there as well, right? So just like we negate a verb, a past tense verb, fa'ala, ma fa'ala, we negate kana as well. Kana, ma kana. That ma there is just for negation, right? What do we have next here? Laysa. Laysa is just another form of negating. It's just another form of negating. So if I say laysa rajulu tawilan, what will that mean? Ar-rajulu tawil means the man is tall. Laysa rajulu tawilan, what will that mean? The man is not tall. Correct. So this one doesn't necessarily change to past tense, like kana does that. And that's the difference between ma kana and laysa. Right. Then we have, so that's why I said, as for the first one, Kaana changes it to was to past tense. But each of the other sisters, they change it just to the meaning related to that word. Right? So next we have asbaha. Asbaha can mean either, you can hear the word subh in there, right? Subh you relate to morning. So asbaha can mean to enter the morning, or it can also mean to become. Asbaha rajulan will mean he became a man. Asbaha rajulan, he became a man. And and another example can be asbaha qari'an lil Quran. That will mean he entered the morning reading the Quran. Look, I don't expect you to understand that directly for now, but I'm just giving you examples of that usage, right? You might know, you might know from the du'as of the morning and the evening, asbahna wa asbaha al-mulku lillah. We have entered the morning and the dominion has entered the morning for the sake of Allah, or as belongings of Allah. أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك. I entered the morning doing XYZ. Allahumma inni. Yes, you can say it like that. Oh Allah, I have the Allahumma part is just nida. You're calling on Allah. And then what you're saying is أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائك وجميع خلقك. And then when you do the same dua as at night, you change it to أمسى أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله. Because أمسى now means to enter the night. Or it can mean also to become. Right? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have an issue here. Let me check. Okay. I think I should pause. Should I ask that? You tried no. No. Am I back here? Can you guys hear me? Online?
We can hear you, Sheikh.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, so we had كان ما كان ليس أصبح أمسى. Then we have ما زال. ما زال. Now you can use this in the form zala, but generally it gets used in the negative form ما زال. And zala on its own means to cease or stop, right? So ما زال will mean to continue, to not stop, to continue, right? Or to remain. ما زال قائما. He remains standing. Right. Right. ما زال. And then we have كاد. كاد. Just the noon change to dal. كاد means almost. So if I say كاد يفعل ذلك, it means he almost did XYZ. Right. And ما دام will mean as long as. As long as. These are all sisters of Kaana. Like for example, like you'll say something like ما دام الأرض متحركا, and something. I'm just making up something. As long as the earth is moving, whatever. But so we have كان, ما كان, ليس, أصبح, أمسى, ما زال, كاد, ما دام. Those are the ones we have here, right? And I think for now, for this lesson, as for next lesson, inshallah, I want you to just learn them, know them. The purpose is you don't necessarily have to memorize this. Well, it's good to know them, to memorize them as well, and you must know what they mean, right? Why do you need to be able to identify the messages of Kaana? That's going to tell you how to deal with them, what to expect following them, right? So for next week, inshallah, I just want you to go through that, recap anything, see if you have any questions, ensure that you have the book, and we'll then take it from there, inshallah, going through the worksheets and things like that. We'll try and see how we can break up into groups in person and online. I see our online presence is growing, alhamdulillah. I mean, our in-person presence. Did it grow a little bit? Yeah, it did grow, but alhamdulillah. So we'll leave it there for now, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Are there any questions before I end? This notes, yes, Sister Celine is going to send it to you, inshallah.
Okay.
PDF, yeah. All right. Is the last three very common in the Quran? They're not very common in the Quran, but they do appear in the Quran. Yes. No, that's in the Quran, but they do appear in the Quran, but not they're not common. The word Zala appears in the Quran, Kada appears in the Quran, Dama as well. So they are in the Quran, but like I wouldn't say, I don't know what qualifies something as common as opposed to not common, but they definitely do come in the Quran. Yes. Okay, then for now, Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Maulana Yazid will take over now, inshallah. Yazid, I just want to show Maulana Yazid something. Okay.